The other day, my 13 going on 17-year-old asked me, "What's ESP?" Now, she is an avid reader, as I was when I was her age, and she had picked up a collection of short stories by T.C. Boyle that was laying on an end table at a friend's house. I was surprised that of all the things that she knows, she didn't know this. Given the volume of books that she's read, and because ESP as a concept was so prevalent in the culture of my own youthful literary travels, authors like Edgar Cayce and Isaac Asimov and Jane Roberts and Ray Bradbury, so many speculative fiction and spiritualist icons seem to name ESP as the natural evolution of an evolved mind. And it seemed like ESP was everywhere. So to have her ask me what it was startled me into suddenly zooming out on the shifts in cultural norms that take place from one generation to the next. And at this stage of my life, I've been around long enough to be uncool, or cringe, as the kids say these days. And I have racked up my share of moments of struggling to make technology work, of feeling out of touch with the changes in our society and in language, and the glorious evolution of slang. I had to ask her what Riz means, which made my young teen cover her mouth in embarrassed giggling. Does anyone here know what? Okay, I'm not the only one. I'm glad I'm not the only one. Riz is short for charisma. And let's just leave it at that.
I've also been told I have drip.
So, it's not just the changes in culture, though. Every generation is on the front lines of some kind of culture shift. We've all been there, noting how our own elders in our time didn't always get it, did they? I will admit that Father's Day is always tough for me, a little bit. I imagine my own life reflecting on my experiences as a series of hairpin turns down a mountain. And for reasons I won't go into here, my own father did not seem to be able to follow me across some of those changes and the new things that would have been required of our transformed relationship. Now, he's not here to defend himself, and so understand I'm only offering you my own perspective, and I do respect and love him very much. But it did give me a sense, as much as we love each other, that we could not make our relationship work. So far, I'll hold out hope, right? The Beatles said, "Love is all you need." But the change in culture between that time and my time meant that I don't believe that, really. I don't believe that love is all you need. And others of my generation feel similarly, that love needs a direction, an application of love in order to have a real impact on the world. So when I think about that one small shift in my cultural understanding, from love is all you need to love is not enough all by itself, in terms of how it allows me to continue to stay connected to my own children, when my father didn't seem to be able to stay connected to me, I have profound gratitude and grief in one. It's that essential pragmatism and as well as an essential commitment to meaningful connection that allows me to hold a stance of love that allows for the other of my children, like Martin Buber's I, thou, that gives me hope that I will have what it takes to stay in relationship with my own children, though their own lives will undoubtedly have their share of hairpin turns. I would argue that that quality is also part of what informs my call to Unitarian Universalist ministry and my capacity to be effective as a minister and faith leader. to hold the complexity of myself and yourself in creative tension, because ultimately, my theologies and my values prioritize the relating of us to each other and the honoring of each other's worth and dignity and self-determination that are more important than whether or not I am right or knowledgeable or even important. The connections among nodes in the interdependent web. How does the web stay whole? It stays connected. So earlier when I mentioned that my life took unexpected turns and that I was in uncharted territory, well, that was kind of half the story. The other part of this truth is that in the unexpected developments of my own life, in its dislocations, I found myself identifying more and more with my mother's story, oddly enough. The disruptions of my own life, through no plan of my own, meant that she and I ended up sharing some pretty significant milestones. 2 children from 2 marriages, suddenly single in early middle age and working hard to be single parent and to stay a good parent while single parenting. A huge positive transformation and reclaiming of ourselves at 50 years old. The similarities in our pattern were shockingly present to me as I got older. In this weird way, it felt almost like there was some kind of existential patterning that got embedded into the family or even epigenetically into my DNA that allowed these very similar patterns to emerge in our lives. The more things change, the more they stay the same, right? A couple of historians, one of whom is Neil Howe, and forgive me because I forgot the other one, they wrote a book that was published in 1997 called The Fourth Turning is Here. Has anyone heard of it? Okay, I've only read a summary, so take it with a grain of salt, but I put it on my Goodreads list and I'll let you know what I think later. Feel free to let me know what you think if you read it too. But the summary of this is, these historians postulate that history seems to follow about an 80 to 100 year cycle, about the length of a human life. And that 100-year, 80-year cycle is composed of 4 different seasons, or what they call turnings. And these turnings always follow the same order. The first one, about 20-25 years, is the high point. The second one is a period of an awakening. The third one is the unraveling. And the fourth one is crisis. 3 guesses which turning we are in today. Anybody get it? Crisis, 100%. So this theory proposed that human history repeats itself in these cycles, and I think it's safe to say that this mostly applies to dominant or mainstream culture, right? The significant, the obvious history that's written. But in our most recent series that we're in, of which we're in the 4th turning, started around the 1940s and ran through about the mid-60s, and that was a high, right? World War II into the very beginning of the Civil Rights era. The Civil Rights era in the 60s to the 80s being that time of great awakening, right? And the 3rd turning, the unraveling, began with the second election of Ronald Reagan, which, not trying to make a political statement, this is more what this is just what I read and I'm reporting to you, encompassed the wars in Iraq and all of that conflict, and ended with the bubble bursting in 2008, the real estate bubble. Now, the 4th turning, crisis, we're seeing rising authoritarianism around the world, our own sort of political and racial crises, and attacks on trans lives, disability justice issues. All of these things are happening in this time of intense crisis. If you look at this pattern going back through history, 80 years before that cycle began, America was in the Great Depression and followed by World War I. 80 years before that was the American Civil War. 80 years before that was the American Revolutionary War. Right? You can see that this, at least according to what these historians are postulating, there are some resonance here, right? So the patterns are on repeat. Truly, there is nothing new under the sun. Except, we are new. We are new people. Each of us, regardless of your views on what happens or doesn't happen before birth or after death, whatever you believe about the human soul or the afterlife, as far as we can tell, these us's have not really existed before. We are new. Or at least we are as new as our choices and our values and our human fallibility will allow us to be. But don't we ultimately want things to be better? For those of us who have had the honor and to serve as guardians or caregivers of children, didn't you want better for them than you got? Right? I'm seeing nods. That right there is an essential bridge builder moment. Like our reading that Kevin so beautifully recited for us. We are doing the work knowing it is not us who will receive the benefits of our effort. That is the soul of justice work, my friends. The heart and the mind of what it means and what it takes to build beloved community. But that human fallibility, those moments when our choices are driven not by our deeply considered and committed values, but by reaction or habit, by assumption or preconception, or even the desire to just rest and let things be familiar and comfortable and not have to work so hard with discomfort like we did with our hymn, right? It's hard work. When we treat a moment not as if it was something new, but as if it was something old, old hat, same old, same old. We just repeat the patterns. And it's worse when we don't even realize that that's what we are doing. Hindsight's 20/20, right? Fear makes us want to splint things to keep them from moving too much, to keep things static and predictable and the same. But love fuels curiosity. And coupled with courage, humility, and compassion, curiosity is what will help us forge the beloved community out of the sweat of our brow and the breaking of our own hearts and the upwelling of hope within our own souls. Fear keeps us small and the same. But the tighter we grip time and the more it seems to slip through our fingers, doesn't it? It's a futile struggle. Fear keeps us bound, but love sets us free. But love without action is just an IOU scrawled on a beautiful piece of paper. So here's the thing. If the game is the same, the rules are the things that change. Just like children who outgrow their hand-me-downs or seasons or even the turnings of history, the playing field is not only not level, it's built on rollers attached to a merry-go-round where some of the safety belts are broken or missing. The thing that's worked for us in our 20s didn't work for us in our 40s, for those of us that are there. The things that worked for you when you were 8 didn't work for you when you were 18, right? It's hard to recognize when we're holding on to something past its usefulness. It's hard to look at our children to get perspective on the huge shifts in culture and I wonder if I am past my usefulness. It sucks.
Yeah.
Yes, I heard that. It sucks. It's like church. Is everyone here aware, at least, of the general idea that most denominations today are experiencing a decline in membership?
Yeah.
Yes, I can just tell you that's generally true. It's true of most mainline denominations, not just in this country. It's true of Unitarian Universalism. And we have this tradition and practice of doing church in a certain way, but the times have outgrown our ways. And we who are still here are finding ourselves hard-pressed to figure out how and if we can still be useful. But I'm telling you that we can be. We are. The things that we hold on to, the ways we hold on to, sometimes it's too hard or painful to acknowledge that what we're holding on to has passed its prime. Even if it is precious to us and has served us well in its time, it's just sad to say goodbye. About the only way I have managed to do it in my own life, the times when I had to say a painful goodbye, was to use my deepest values and integrity as a metric to help me know the best that I could do in any given moment. That's all any of us can do. I wanted to choose the thing that would help me wake up in the morning and be able to look at myself in the mirror and recognize myself, to stay true to what I believed was the best in myself. I wanted to be able to respect myself, basically. The person that my kids look up to, at least when I'm not being cringe. So in that, I am seeking to find my relevance by shifting to how I can become a bridge builder, not so that I can be happy or comfortable, but so that there is ground to rely on for the people who come after me. Soil to cultivate for a harvest I will never reap the benefits of. Bridges to build to a land I will never reach. That was the poignant sorrow and the immense courage of a figure like Moses, right, on your t-shirt. Moses was never going to set foot in the promised land, but he nevertheless belonged to a people who would. Do I think any of us will get to experience beloved community? I don't know. I hope so. Probably moments of it. You all built a church out of nothing. This church started out of intention and persistence and love. That is a beautiful thing. If we're lucky, if we're paying attention, we will get moments and glimpses of beloved community, because it's not just going to be like a switch that flipped on. It's something that is built one brick at a time, like that bridge that spans the tide. If we're paying attention, and if we're brave enough to be uncomfortable, if we're brave enough to center the marginalized, and to let ourselves be ignorant again, because our time of culture is not the prime culture anymore, then perhaps we will be able to enjoy our wisdom and be supportive, right? Aim our efforts at the people who are coming after us, the people who need to be centered. Our youth are marginalized, right? The more things stay the same, the more they change, sometimes despite us. But wouldn't it be beautiful if it could change because of us? When it boils down to it, whether things stay the same or whether they can change, I hope this message has at least illustrated that you can expect a little bit of both, is that we cultivate our ability to be with each other in the process. In the highs, in the awakenings, in the unravelings, and in the crises, our ability to be with each other, and not only that, but to improve and expand on our ideas of with and with whom. The little kid in me wishes that my father had found a way to be with me instead of not. But I take that learning and I point it towards my children. And I know that I have turned that into a commitment to my own children, to be there and to be with them, because it is the most important thing. So how can we as Unitarian Universalists, angling toward the beloved community, do any less for ourselves and for each other and for a glorious but unrealized and probably unimaginable future. It is a time of great transformation, and we need each other more than ever to bring out the best in each other, to create those moments of beloved community that we become like beads that are strung on a beautiful strand. Someday, that strand will be complete. So, I hope that you will be able to celebrate and support each other here in Palatka and beyond, in the community beyond these walls, and by those people who are accessible by magnificent technologies that I still need to ask my children for help with. So whether these feelings and these times feel new, or it's all déjà vu, love must undergird both our values and our actions if we are to traverse the hairpin turns of this time. May you always, always remember to be with each other and to love each other along the way. So let it be.